Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 116 based on novel. So let's start. Far away from planet Suzaku, Liu Mai was flying in the void with a golden purple light under her feet. Her expression was very ugly. Wang Lin, Liu Mai bit her lower lip hard as she moved through space like a bolt of lightning. If it wasn't for the fact that Master secretly gave me the fourth soul, I would have had no chance of survival against those four primary souls. A flash of golden purple light appeared on Liu Mai's forehead. The image of a thin needle kept flashing. When we meet again, I won't be in such a sorry state. Wang Lin, you definitely won't be able to recognize me after the 1000 illusion ruthless domain becomes the 10,000 illusion demon domain. Liu Mai's eyes became cold and her figure disappeared among the stars. Liu Mai wasn't the only one who left planet Suzaku. Right now there was another girl quickly moving through space. This girl was wearing a purple veil and her eyes were calm. She was Sichun. Planet Suzaku, country of Chu, Cloud Sky Sect. Right now there was one person sitting inside the villa that Li Muwen had lived in for a long time. This person was wearing a white robe and his black hair was casually scattered behind him. Although he looked normal, he gave off a mysterious aura that made it hard for people to forget about him. His eyes were calm and clear like a child's, but they also looked very profound, making it easy for people to lose themselves within them. At this moment, his expression was calm as he sat there and looked outside the window. On the open space outside lied a tiger lazily basking in the sun. It would occasionally open its eyes, let out a low growl, flip around, and let its stomach bask in the sun too. Under the shade near the tiger was a woman sitting in the lotus position. This woman had a very pure appearance. Her naivety made her even more charming. She sat there as if she was cultivating. 2 strands of white gas were coming out from her nose and floating above her head. The man inside the villa was none other than Wang Lin. 1 year ago he left the Suzaku tomb and came back to Chu. Right after he returned, he immediately went into closed-door cultivation for a year. In 1 year of time, Wang Lin healed all the injuries he got in the Suzaku tomb and his cultivation level went up by a bit. Although he hadn't reached the mid-stage of soul transformation yet, his cultivation at the early stage of soul transformation was even more stable. 7 days ago, Suzaku Ju Wutai invited him to his appointment ceremony, but Wang Lin rejected it. Ju Wutai understood that Wang Lin would not stay, so he didn't force the subject. He promised that as long as he, Ju Wutai, breathes, then Wang Lin's friends will live in peace. Wang Lin looked outside the window before withdrawing his gaze. He slapped the bag of holding and the celestial sword flew out and floated before him. The moment the celestial sword appeared, a half-moon blade flew out of the bag by itself. The blade circled the celestial sword as if it were very happy. Master, number 4 has already been tamed by me to be very obedient. Number 4, come and greet Master. Shuligua's voice came from the celestial sword, then black smoke floated out of the sword and took his form. He looked very proud. The half-moon blade shook and then a dark blue smoke came out from the blade and turned into the shape of a boy. The boy's figure was not distinct. After it appeared, it bowed toward Wang Lin as it sent out a divine sense message. Greeting. After seeing this blade, deep down Wang Lin couldn't help but admire Shuligua. Back then, when he found Shuligua, he didn't know what Shuligua did, but he was getting along very well with the half-moon blade. When the half-moon blade saw that Shuligua was going to leave, it quickly followed. All of this was outside Wang Lin's expectations. Although Wang Lin still couldn't control it or imprint his divine sense onto it, as soon as Shuligua encountered danger, the half-moon blade would help. As a result, Shuligua's pride shot up. If it wasn't for the fact that he was terrified of Wang Lin and Wang Lin held his life, Shuligua would have already rebelled. Wang Lin knew that he wasn't a match for the half-moon blade. If he started fighting it, it would be a sticky situation. However, for some reason, the half-moon blade really liked Shuligua, so Wang Lin used Shuligua to control it. During this year, Wang Lin had tried to study this half-moon blade. Just whose soul fragment was powerful enough to form this blade? But even until now, he still hadn't made any headway, and as time passed, Wang Lin no longer spent time on this matter. "Master, I'm going to bring number 4 to stroll around." After he saw Wang Lin nod in approval, he immediately charged out the window. The half-moon blade quickly followed and released a series of blade hums. The sword and blade disappeared in the sky, going who knows where. Wang Lin touched his bag of holding. He still had a lot of things to do before he leaves. A lot of treasures in his bag needed to be refined again. After all, this trip to planet Tianyun was shrouded in a fog. He had no idea what was going to happen this time. While he was thinking this, a very arrogant voice came from the void and entered Wang Lin's ear. "Wang Lin, come and look at the matter you asked me to investigate. I'm outside of Phoenix City in a village named Mulberry. In the future, don't bother me with these small matters. I'm enjoying my life as a king too much, so I don't have time for you. That's right, when you are about to leave, just tell me and we can leave together." Sichun Nan's voice was filled with joy and then it disappeared. Wang Lin revealed a smile. When he met Sichun Nan again after coming out of the Suzaku tomb, they were originally going to come back to Chu and leave together after dealing with some matters. However, halfway to Chu, Sichun Nan saw a mortal palace and an urge to become a king appeared. No matter what, he wouldn't go to Chu with Wang Lin and rushed toward that palace instead. Wang Lin didn't know what method he used, but the next day, the king made Sichun Nan a king equal to the real king. From that moment on, he lived a carefree life. However, he didn't forget about leaving the planet and told Wang Lin to tell him when he was ready to go. Wang Lin took a deep breath, stood up, opened the door, and walked out. The moment he came out, the girl under the shade opened her beautiful eyes. After seeing Wang Lin, she smiled, ended her cultivation, and happily said, "Uncle, what do you think of Ru'er's cultivation speed? I have already reached the second layer of qi condensation." This girl was J Aru. 1 year ago, after Wang Lin arrived at Chu, he immediately summoned the pagoda and let J Aru and Little White out. Wang Lin had left a lot of food inside the pagoda for J Aru to eat. After J Aru came out, she begged him to teach her how to cultivate. Wang Lin couldn't win against her, so he gave her the chant for qi condensation. J Aru had become an adult in the blink of an eye. Wang Lin couldn't help but think of Li Muwen when he looked J Aru. "Uncle, what's wrong?" J Aru walked up and gave Wang Lin a strange look. J Aru's knowledge of Li Muwen was wiped by Wang Lin, so she naturally wouldn't know anything about her. As for Little White, he would naturally not tell her anything about it. Touching a strand of J Aru's hair, Wang Lin revealed a gentle gaze. This kind of gaze was rare from Wang Lin. Although he looked like he was the same age as J Aru, this gentle gaze looked very natural. Wang Lin softly said, "Uncle is getting old. Looking at you made me think of someone I knew." J Aru laughed. Her voice was like the sound of bells ringing in the gentle wind. She laughed and said, "Uncle, you aren't old at all. A new junior apprentice brother just asked me yesterday if you were my older brother." Wang Lin faintly smiled. This child spent all day yesterday cultivating, so there was no junior apprentice brother at all. She said that to comfort him. "Uncle has already cultivated for 600 years, how could I not be old?" Wang Lin let out a sigh. His eyes showed the passage of time. He had experienced far too much in 600 years. From a mortal no one knew, he reached the point he was at today step by step. At this moment, he was the person who decided who the next Suzaku would be. When he reflected on all of this, Wang Lin sometimes felt like it was all a dream. 600 years of cultivation allowed Wang Lin to see through a lot of time. Also, he had steeled his heart, making him even more exceptional. Do you still remember your parents?" Wang Lin looked at J Aru. J Aru's body trembled as she revealed a look of confusion. Shortly after, she lowered her head and said, "Only vague memories." Wang Lin looked at J Aru with a hint of apology in his eyes. If it wasn't for him, she would be with her parents and would have had a warmth-filled childhood, unlike now where she only had a tiger as a friend. "Uncle will take you home," said Wang Lin softly. With one wave of his sleeve, A cloud appeared under them and flew off into the distance with J Aru on it. Little White quickly flipped over and no longer basked in the sun. He let out a roar, jumped into the sky, and quickly followed them. On the cloud, J Aru bit her lower lip and softly asked, "Uncle, you found my parents?" "I found them." "J Aru, remember that once you see your parents, you must be filial to them. Remember that filial love is the first love people have. If you can't be filial, then you can't be considered a person," said Wang Lin. It was as if his parents' figures had appeared before his eyes. J Aru nodded, then she looked at Wang Lin with a bit of hesitation and said, "Uncle, didn't you say you were going bring me when you leave planet Suzaku?" Wang Lin looked at J Aru and sighed. Our fate ends here. Uncle." J Aru's body started trembling, her expression greatly changed, her eyes turned red, and tears began to fill her eyes. "Don't say any more," said Wang Lin, with a heavy tone. With one step, the cloud under them flew even faster. Little White let out a roar behind them and continued to fly. He secretly thought, although this tiger grandfather can't run as fast you're dreaming if you think you can get rid of me that easily. Even if I cough up blood, I'll still catch up. Planet Suzaku, outside of Phoenix City in a mortal village. It was a morning in spring. There was smoke coming out from the various houses and there were sounds of dogs barking along with children playing. The fifth house to the east of the village was a humble house. A slightly older woman was squatting in the kitchen, lighting the stove to prepare to cook. Her figure was slightly bent and filled with age. Smoke came from the firewood, causing her to cough, so she quickly picked up the bamboo fan. After fanning it a bit, the smoke finally scattered. "Ayu's mom," a voice called to her from the room next to the kitchen. The woman put down the fan and wiped her hand on her dress. She quickly left the kitchen and arrived at the room where the voice came from. After opening the door and entering the room, she saw an old man sitting on the bed. His eyes were sunken in and deep wrinkles covered his face. The man's entire body was just skin and bones and his eyes had no light in them. The woman arrived next to the bed, then she looked at the man and tears came out of her eyes. "Husband, what do you want to eat?" The man raised his right hand and the woman quickly helped him sit up. "Ayu's mom, I had a dream yesterday that our daughter returned home." A hint of brightness appeared in the man's dim eyes. "Our daughter will return home soon." The woman's tears started pouring out. "Yes, she will return home soon," she said. "I regretted my decision back then. I shouldn't have let that daoist take her away. In a flash, 20 years have passed and I have no idea how she is." The man looked even older. The woman wiped away her tears and whispered, "Don't worry, our daughter has good fortune, she is definitely safe. These two are J Aru's parents. During the Forsaken Immortal clan's invasion, they were forced to move here to get away from the war. However, these two elders have always thought of J Aru. J Aru being taken away by that daoist has always been a thorn in their hearts. The years of longing made this thorn even longer and stronger, making the pain even worse. J Aru's father has always regretted this. After he got sick, he never got better and became thinner and thinner by the day. All of the household's burdens fell on J Aru's mother. A housewife had to support the entire family. However, in her dreams, tears filled her eyes and she still called J Aru's name. "Our daughter will come home." "Husband, you had a dream yesterday about her returning." "Your dream will definitely come true." The woman wiped away her tears. J Aru's father let out a deep sigh and was about to say something when his eyes locked onto the door. It was as if his entire person was frozen and couldn't move a muscle. The woman was startled as she turned around to see where her husband was looking at. When her gaze reached the door, her entire body began to tremble. She saw a girl standing at the door. This girl was very charming and had long, flowing black hair. Her appearance was a bit similar to the couple's vague memories of J Aru. The woman hesitantly whispered, "You." "Mother." Tears suddenly fell from the girl's eyes as she arrived next to the woman and began to cry. "Rua, it really is Rua. Husband, she really came back." The woman became so excited that tears streamed down her cheeks. The woman hugged the girl and began to cry. J Aru's father seemed to be suddenly filled with unimaginable power. He sat up by himself. He looked at J Aru as tears flowed down his cheeks and said, "God have mercy on us. God have mercy on us. My daughter has returned home." Outside the house, Wang Lin sighed. He was filled with regret toward these two. He pointed with his right hand and a ray of spiritual energy quietly entered each of J Aru's parents. J Aru's father's body completely recovered and was filled with vitality. J Aru's mother was the same. Uncle is leaving." After pondering a bit, Wang Lin left. He appeared ever so bleak and lonely. Inside the house, J Aru seemed to feel something, then she looked out the window and saw the bleak and lonely figure. "Uncle, will Aru have a chance to see you again in this life?" thought J Aru. The sorrow in her heart deepened. In her heart, Wang Lin was more important than her parents. After all, she had been with Wang Lin ever since she was little. "Uncle, I'll continue to cultivate until I can leave planet Suzaku. When I can leave, I'll come find you. By then, little Aru will no longer be dragging you down." Wang Lin left. Little White let out a few growls outside of J Aru's house. His big eyes looked into J Aru's house and filled with reluctance. Shortly after, he let out a loud roar before jumping into the sky and disappearing in a ray of white light. This roar shocked all of the villagers in the village, but when they came out, they found nothing. However, all of the livestock in the village didn't dare to leave their pens for a month. Every night, their bodies trembled violently as if they were traumatized. Country of Chu. Wang Lin's body appeared outside the Cloud Sky sect. "Tai Yang, come out to see me." Wang Lin's voice echoed across the Cloud Sky sect. A ray of light quickly flew out from the Cloud Sky sect. The light stopped 10 feet before Wang Lin, revealing an old man. This person was Tai Yang. Tai Yang had reached the Soul Formation and the country of Chu had become a rank for cultivation country. "Tai Yang is here." Tai Yang clasped his hands and respectfully stood there. His heart was filled with respect toward Wang Lin. On planet Suzaku, Wang Lin's name was a legend. Wang Lin, also known as Seng Neo, chopped Red Butterfly's arm, killed Qian Feng, surprised Liu Mai, forced Zixin to retreat, and with one word made Ju Wutai the 15th Suzaku. All of this spread to every cultivator across planet Suzaku. Almost no one didn't know of these stories. In Tai Yan's heart, Wang Lin was the heavens and his words were the heavens' law that no one could resist. Wang Lin waved his right hand and a bag of holding flew out and landed in Tai Yan's hand. "If J Aru can cultivate to the nascent soul stage on her own, give this to her. If she can't, then forget about it. There is a seal by me on it. This seal is very simple, all you need to do is carefully study it and you will be able to break it one day." Wang Lin's voice was extremely plain. Tai Yang was startled and then he quickly said, "Tai Yang doesn't dare. This is your gift to J Aru. Even if I were to die, I wouldn't dare to break it open." Wang Lin looked at Tai Yang and nodded. "You better not lust after it, or else you will have to suffer the consequences. Remember this well." Tai Yang's heart shook and he memorized it in his heart. He wouldn't dare to disregard Wang Lin's words, to not believe Wang Lin's words. This feeling followed him even to his death. Wang Lin took a good look around before letting out a sigh. Then his body turned into a cloud of green smoke and was scattered by the wind. Tai Yang was completely soaked in sweat. He carefully put the bag of holding away and returned to the Cloud Sky sect. On the extreme northern part of planet Suzaku where the country of Shuiyu used to be, and where the icy wind could chill one to the bones. No one knew when, but a field of roses had grown here. However, the roses weren't red but white. Fields of white roses had grown in this cold place and their fragrance filled the area. On the eastern part of the area, there was an icy valley, and inside the valley a single blue rose was growing. It grew facing the cold wind and its branches were like ice. It was like a proud maiden proudly standing there, creating its own charm. On this day, a person entered the valley. This person was wearing white robes and looked every calm. At the moment the person entered, the blue rose seemed to have noticed and released a fragrance. The valley was suddenly filled with the fragrance of the blue rose. It was as if there was a maiden dancing in the valley, giving people a very mysterious feeling. The white-robed young man stood silently behind the blue rose. He looked at it for a very long time before squatting down and gently plucking it. Then he turned around and left. As the young man left, the white roses all began to wilt and die. It was as if they had only grown to accompany that blue rose. When the blue rose was taken away, they lost their reason for living, so they could only scatter. Country of Jiao, foot of the Hengyu mountain, the Wang family's ancestral home. On this day, the young man wearing a snow-white robe silently appeared in the temple of the ancestral home. He quietly looked at the row of tablets before locking his gaze on the two at the top. The young man quietly stared at them for a very long time and never moved. This lasted for 1 day and 1 night. On the morning of the second day, a servant came to close the room. When the servant caught sight of the young man in the snow-white robe, he was about to call for help, but his body suddenly softened and fell on the ground. The young man silently looked at the tablets, his eyes filled with remembrance. He stood there for 3 days and 3 nights. Each day, the remembrance in his eyes deepened. And 2 streams of tears fell from his cheeks. After 3 days, the young man finally moved. He slowly kneeled on the ground and kowtowed. "Father! Mother! Your son is going to leave," muttered the young man, then he stood up and walked out of the temple. Right now there were a lot of people standing outside the temple. There were men and women, old and young among the people outside. They were all wearing luxurious clothes and all looked like they were blessed. There were even some cultivators among them. Even though their cultivation levels weren't high, they looked very heroic. The person in front was Wang Shuo. 1 day ago, Wang Shuo felt something call for him, so he came here. When he arrived at the temple, he felt Wang Lin's presence. He knew that Wang Lin was not hiding his presence and that the call he felt was also from Wang Lin. That was why he came and also why he called all of the Wang family here. No matter what they were doing, he made them stop and had cultivators bring them here. At the moment Wang Lin walked out, Wang Shuo shouted, "All Wang family members, kneel." The more than 100 Wang family descendants outside the temple all kneeled. No matter what their identity was, no matter what status they enjoyed among mortals, they were kneeling before their founding ancestor right now. The Wang family's founding ancestor from 600 years ago. It was the descendants' filial duty to kneel toward their ancestor. Also, this ancestor was a very famous person all over planet Suzaku. The Wang family was one of the very few families on planet Suzaku where even if cultivators met them, they would have to be very respectful. All of this was because the Wang family produced Wang Lin. Wang Shuo looked at Wang Lin and said, with a heavy tone, "Wang Lin, I brought all the Wang family descendants to send you off." Wang Lin looked at the unfamiliar faces that contained his family's bloodline and said, "All of you, rise." The entire Wang family stood up and respectfully looked at Wang Lin. "After I leave, I will leave the Wang family to you," whispered Wang Lin as he looked at Wang Shuo. Wang Shuo pondered a bit. After a while, he let out a sigh and said, "In an instant, 600 years have passed. Wang Lin, you be careful. As for the matters at home, I'll take care of them." Wang Lin turned around and took another good look at the temple. He took 1 step and then disappeared without a trace. The ancestral home was completely silent. All of the Wang family members kowtowed once more. "Good travels, ancestor." A wave of respectful send-offs came from the Wang family members. Scenes from the past played in Wang Shuo's mind as he looked at the sky. He followed his father to the village where Wang Lin lived. He saw a youth next to second uncle greeting everyone with a smile. The smile on the youth's smiling face continued to expand in Wang Shuo's mind until it was the only thing left. Wang Lin, 2 streams of tears fell from Wang Shuo's old eyes. Eastern part of planet Suzaku. Wang Lin was flying across a wasteland on top of the mosquito. The sound of the mosquito breaking the sound barrier could be heard as it rushed forward. His eyes were bright like a torch as he looked around. Shortly after, his expression changed. The mosquito quickly understood Wang Lin's intentions. It let out a roar and quickly landed on the plain below. Wang Lin took a step and landed on the ground. The mosquito stood there and cautiously observed its surroundings. Wang Lin slapped his bag of holding. A ray of green light shot out and turned into the thunder toad. After the thunder toad came out, it let out a thunderous roar, causing the mosquito to respond. Then the mosquito began to mess with the toad and the two began to play with each other. Wang Lin opened his bag of holding and his divine sense spread out inside it. He chose this place because it was remote. He decided to organize and refine the treasures he had inside his bag before leaving. First was the celestial sword and the half-moon blade. He only took one look at them and then moved on. As for the axe, he wasn't going to refine it because he was going to give it to his original body. As for the 4 sword sheaths, Wang Lin still didn't understand them. He felt regretful that he still didn't understand their mysteries even at this point, where he was about to leave planet Suzaku. He waved his right hand and the 4 sword sheaths started floating before him. Then he spat out some origin spiritual energy and quickly surrounded the 4 sword sheaths. He began to refine them. Time slowly passed. 3 days later, Wang Lin's eyes lit up. The connection between him and the 4 sword sheaths was even stronger now. He waved his right hand and put the sword sheaths away. This time Wang Lin took out the soul lasher. There was a trace of divine sense on this whip that Wang Lin couldn't break with his current cultivation, but he still had a way of dealing with it. With a thought, the pagoda containing Ju Yi's domain flew out. It landed on the ground and an ascendant-level domain immediately spread out. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, then his hand formed a seal, pointed at the soul lasher, and sent out a seal. The whip immediately started shaking and a white aura spread out from it. This white aura was extremely tyrannical and immediately shattered Wang Lin's seal. Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he willed Ju Yi's domain to quickly gather around the soul lasher. Soon, a mass of green light surrounded the soul lasher and the white aura around it. Wang Lin's eyes were calm as he pointed at his forehead and his origin soul flew out. He flew at the soul lasher and began to refine it. This process lasted 7 days. 7 days later, with Ju Yi's domain and Wang Lin's origin soul, the divine sense in the soul lasher was finally destroyed. With it gone, Wang Lin left his own divine sense on the soul lasher with his origin soul. When he looked at the soul lasher, he could feel the connection he had with it. It was as if they were one. There were many layers of restrictions inside the soul lasher, just like how the straw hat was constructed with layers of restrictions. However, there was more than one straw hat, making it worth much less than the soul lasher. Aside from hiding one's appearance, Wang Lin was also able to learn a bit from the jade cues gave him. The most useful thing about the straw hat was that he would learn more restrictions from studying it and thus increase the power of his restriction flag. Wang Lin's current goal for the restriction flag was 9,999 sets of restrictions. In order to reach this goal, he would have to learn that many restrictions. As for the soul lasher, Wang Lin was confident that it was not a pseudo-celestial treasure. Although he could use celestial spiritual energy on it, it was somehow much weaker than when using spiritual energy. This point made Wang Lin very confused. He later found out that he didn't even have to use spiritual energy. As long as he used it, it would produce its own mysterious force. As a result, this item suddenly became mysterious in Wang Lin's eyes. This soul lasher belonged to Chu Yunfei, but he was forced to quickly leave the planet. Although Chu Yunfei knew that the soul lasher was mysterious, it became a burden to him. The soul lasher was in Qian Feng's hands, and Qian Feng was Shu Qiuzi's disciple. He was afraid that it would cause too much of a commotion, so he abandoned it. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He felt that there was something strange about this whip. After pondering a bit, he put it away. He waved his right hand and one more item appeared, the scroll. While staring at the scroll, Wang Lin pondered a bit and then put it away. Among all of his treasures, this was the most mysterious treasure he had other than the heaven-defying bead, although the soul lasher was just added to this list as well. Wang Lin raised his head to look at the sky and revealed a ponderous expression. He then touched the bag of holding and a war chariot filled with spikes came out, landing on the ground. The moment this chariot appeared, all of the surrounding sand was blown away as if it were afraid of getting close. The spikes on the chariot emitted a cold gleam, causing anyone who looked at it to feel fear. As Wang Lin stared at the chariot, he slapped his bag of holding and took out the beast trap. After giving Sichun Nan one of the war chariots, Wang Lin still had 2 left. He knew that he couldn't handle the larger of the 2, or else he would definitely be injured by the backlash. However, Wang Lin was confident in controlling the second war chariot with the beast trap. Half a month later, Wang Lin left the plain. During this half a month, roars from a beast constantly echoed across the plain. These roars shook the high heavens. Even some people from the Forsaken Immortal clan felt the angry roars from the battle spirit that wouldn't bow to anyone. Wang Lin sat on the mosquito beast and quickly flew into the distance. His face was pale and he was holding a celestial jade in his hand. Shortly after, the jade turned to dust and disappeared. The moment the celestial jade disappeared, another one appeared in his hand and he continued to absorb celestial spiritual energy. The power of the spirit beast on the war chariot was outside of Wang Lin's expectations. This beast's unyielding nature was even more powerful than the previous ones. This was from the pride of never bowing to anything. In the end, Wang Lin poured all his effort into trapping the spirit beast inside the beast trap. However, this resulted in a crack appearing on the beast trap. After restricting this unyielding beast, the spiritual energy in Wang Lin's body was drained in an instant. He would have died from it had he not been prepared ahead of time. Wang Lin opened his eyes, touched the beast trap on his wrist, and revealed a look of worry. This will be a powerful treasure. Unfortunately, there are only 3 primary souls left in the soul flag. If I had more, it would be able to stall for time while the war chariot activates. The activation still takes a long time. With my current treasures, I have nothing to fear when facing mid-stage soul transformation cultivators. Against average late-stage soul transformation cultivators, as long as I have time to activate the war chariot, I'll also have the ability to put up a fight. However, against those that have a celestial treasure or are half a step into the ascendant stage, I'll likely lose. As for ascendant cultivators, I have no way of winning. I'm still too weak, and planet Tianyun has far more resources than planet Suzaku. There must be even more powerful cultivators there, so I must be very careful when I'm there. Unfortunately, the heaven-defying bead is still missing the metal element. When I killed Chen Feng, I managed to catch Red Butterfly's metal elemental body, but it only gave the heaven-defying 1/3 of the needed metal element. Wang Lin let out a sigh and flew off into the distance. He was heading toward where Sichun Nan was living his life as a king. In the rank for cultivation country of Ju, in the palace of the mortal capital, Sichun Nan's voice could be heard from within. Ha ha, service this lord well. If this lord enjoys himself, I'll give you darlings these pills that will keep your skin as smooth and white as it is now for 20 to 30 years. Voices like birds chirping continued to come out from the palace. There were also song-like voices mixed within. All of it was very enchanting. This video will end here.